Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to Empathic Design. Just getting all our panelists assembled here, but really excited for this topic. It's a really important one. Okay. Super, and feel free to kind of scooch up into the front here or in the middle as you like, but we are going to get started. All right. So, Empathic Design. What we wanted to do first is kind of introduce ourselves through the lens of empathic design. So, of course, you know, the dictionary definition is kind of understanding things through others and feeling through others. But let's kind of take a minute to see how this topic, what this topic means for each one of us. So, I'll just do a quick intro and then hand it over to our lovely panelists here. I'm Yulia Barnakova. I'm a strategy consultant with the Metaverse business. With the Metaverse Continuum Business Group at Accenture, and we do strategy work for clients and also POC build-outs, and so we do the strategy all the way to the creative. And my lens on empathic design is all about really having our business leaders that we work with actually experience what we're talking about. So what I found is that there's a big gap in actually like getting into a headset, actually going to like a Decentraland or another type of experience. Many leaders have never been, or they don't even have like a MetaMask or something. So I'm always like, let's actually get our hands dirty with the tech so that we truly get that empathy from the user experience as we talk about strategies for customers and employees and our operations. So that's kind of my lens, but we'll hand it over. Let's maybe start in order. So we'll hand it over to Paige.
Well, thank you so much, Yulia. It is an honor, and I'm happy to be here at Immerse Global Summit with my fantastic, brilliant, inspiring panelists. My name is Paige Dansinger. I'm the founding director of Better World Museum, Horizon Art Museum, Women in Horizon, and now just launching today, Dynamite Labs, a metaverse production company creating explosive solutions. But we're not only just creating explosive solutions, we're breaking down the way things have been and rebuilding with purpose and good. So we offer strategies for not only high engagement and ROI, but also opportunities to fulfill their mission purposes of a company, brand, museum, or institution. My focus is museums, but through this work, I realize actually my true interest is creating more resilient individuals, communities, and groups. And I do this through world-building activities, game-making, social summits, and a whole host of opportunities to participate in an of, by, for all ecosystem in the metaverse.
Wonderful. So I'm excited to be here. My name is Ashley Briley, and I know the women on this panel are wonderful, and I've gotten a chance to actually work with them. Prior to the creation of my company, I am president of VRinReview. I build worlds and experiences in Horizon Worlds for brands to kind of like connect with their community and have these virtual experiences that connect with whatever product they're putting out. So I've gotten to work with Monkey Paw Productions, Universal Studios, Felix and Paul Studios, and we just did a world recently, we launched for BuzzFeed Tasty, where people can come into a world and like cook recipes and earn little achievements for doing so. So for my empathic view of creating in the metaverse is I like to create things that feel good to me, but also keep in mind the perspective of other people who are going to be in that space. So we definitely value the diverse perspective of people that come in, giving that feedback to say, like, this doesn't feel good for me. Let's see how we can make this feel better. So that's my empathic lens.
Thank you, amazing, Ashley, and thank you for the opportunity to sit up here on this panel with these amazing people who are leaders, thought leaders in tech and beyond. My name is Dr. Linda Ciavarelli. I am the co-founder of HouseCall VR. We create immersive patient educational experiences. We're solving for that problem when you walk out of the doctor's office with a brochure and a bunch of questions. Go home, you Google it, you may get bad information or non-specific information that has significant downstream effects. So what we're working to do is to create a universal language between patients and their doctors using immersive technology. The way that we think about empathic design is something that I've gleaned from my 20 years in clinical practice. I'm still in clinical practice as I'm working on HouseCall VR, is in regards to the patient experience. From my perspective, when we're building educational pieces for patients, we always begin with the end experience. What does it feel like to be sitting in a chair and having an experience where your doctor is talking in a language that isn't your language, that is using words that you're unfamiliar with, terms, and trying to make sense of all of that? So what does that feel like, and how can we use not just the tech to use it? The tech is only a vehicle, but how can we use this expansion of understanding, this like entirely new way of transmitting information to create a more level playing field?
Excellent, thank you. And just a quick process check. Am I supposed to have a timer over here? I think that's what we had talked about at the beginning. So if you could put that up whenever, just to make sure we're all good. Thank you. So let's just start really concretely with what does this look like? So Ashley, I'm gonna pass it over to you first. Like when you're designing these, you mentioned the tasty work that you're doing, like how do you actually specifically design empathic elements into the work that you do?
Yeah, so absolutely. So I actually take a page from your book, thinking about that end experience for the user, and think about how we know the space in Horizon World is currently being used. What we know is there's a lot of role playing. So we design elements that allow a user to be able to do that, because it doesn't make sense to make a space that a user doesn't want to use. We try to make sure we also consider things that aren't typically at the top of our knowledge as far as things that we might be biased to. So there's this emphasis of visual elements, but we sometimes forget about auditory elements and people that might be a little more sensitive to auditory elements. So we try to make sure we try to have that full scope of view when we try to design something like that.
So just a follow-up, what kind of elements do you put in that really get to that auditory experience?
So when we're, for instance, making a recipe, you've got that visual cue that lets you know that you've completed a step, but we also have an auditory cue to also cue a person to know that something's happened here and it was a success. I think that's important to have those two kind of cue elements, because the user, you're not always going to be able to know exactly what that user is able to register better, the visual cue or the auditory cue, so we want to make sure we have both of those there.
I love that, yeah, because when you're in an immersive experience, you might as well use kind of all of the elements, right? Like you have the person kind of captured in the experience, so really creating that multi-sensory type of work is so critical. I know that we're actually trying to get one more panelist who's beaming in virtually, so folks, as soon as we're ready for that, just let me know. We can be kind of agile, flexible. I know in the metaverse, we all have to just be, very flexible with technology. But I know she's trying to beam through into our reality here. So just on that point of what are really great empathic experience examples, I'll give it over to Paige next, because I know you're kind of an OG in this space. And so you've done, folks, she has a dress here with a QR code, right? I mean, she is like the definition of multi-sensory, multi-reality. So would love to hear your perspective on this as well.
Well, thank you. It's true that I love creative technology, But I often ask myself, so what, right? So when I start to build, so what? And often that so what filters to be about elevating community voices, right? And that the importance of creating, decentering myself and creating a museum or an experience or a group that's really a platform about elevating the voices in the room who are less bold, right? Or less traditionally made space for in communities at tables and boardrooms and the like. So, for instance, Women Horizon just hosted a women's summit. It was an 8-day, completely in VR summit with the theme of building empowerment. And over 50 women spoke about their worlds, their experiences, and how in the last year, being in the Metaverse has transformed their lives, how they've created new revenue systems and new sustainable ways of supporting their dreams and goals, and truly using these shapes or tools to reshape their lives and create the lives that truly they deserve. Another mirroring program is at the Better World Museum. It's currently a white wall template museum where participants in the artist in residency program are invited to dismantle the museum to make a better world. And in this program, we've had outstanding achievements of the participants where they have, once they upload the template, it's no longer about me, right? It's about, for instance, Angel Artist is one artist who created a museum honoring Black women's experiences in arts and in life. And this museum is truly hers. She created assets and sold them as NFTs. She hosts her own events there, and she was recognized by Mark Zuckerberg as creating Angel Artist Better World Museum. And a museum that's truly of, by, for all, that is working towards dismantling that hierarchy is one that, I didn't say, oh, that's my museum. That's Angel Artist Museum now, and we've seen that again with Shea Arts, who has created a world about positive affirmations, and Vijay Franz K, who created a museum about neurodiversity, right? And then it becomes truly their empowered space. We have a lot of experiences and examples like that across Rec Room, especially with our teen leadership role programs, and at Horizon Art Museum with our Plus Community Voices program.
So you're almost like, you're part of the creator economy, right? Like you're creating in Horizon worlds, but your flavor of empathic design is essentially creating almost that creator economy within the creator economy, where you're empowering users, you're, as you said, you're decentering yourself, and instead of trying to necessarily figure out what they want, you're letting them show you and build what they want. So that's kind of a key part, and I think as we sort of move out, as the metaverse world evolves and we get deeper into it, I think that's going to be a really key principle here, is just empowering users to kind of tell you and show you what they want to create. That's great. Thank you. I want to go to Linda, and then I'm going to check in to see if our virtual panelists can beam in here. But Linda, I know you have just this amazing story with trying to, I know you try in so many ways to really get in the shoes of your patients and understand, well, what kind of information, how can I convey the information to them in a way that will match their learning style and their preferences. So would love to kind of hear some of your work there and how you think about empathic design in your practice.
Sure, thank you. these are great examples of good empathic design. I think we're all familiar with another example of bad empathic design, and that's when we have an experience, specifically in healthcare. It takes an hour on the phone to make an appointment. You have to wait weeks to get that appointment. I see a lot of nodding heads. It feels like, I don't want to belabor the point because we've all been there. There's nowhere to park. It's hard to find. The walls are gray. The receptionist is grumpy. It's the entire experience is not designed today in healthcare around the patient. So our mission is to create the experience from the patient's point of view, to create a way for all of the information that we receive, whether it be in preventative care or in a diagnostic situation, wherever we are, to find the space where we can design a way for people to have for to have literacy, and ultimately to create agency around our own health. So from my perspective, that's, having been in clinical practice, both, in a hospital setting and private community setting, to see how that impacts people, and to always, even in my clinical practice, to knock on the door before I walk in a room, to signal to my patient that this is your space and mine, and I am asking to be admitted, and that small gesture is something that is comes from a place of empathy. From HouseCall's perspective, even from our name is HouseCall because it puts the patient back at the center of healthcare. That's not been something that's been, we've had incredible advances technologically. We have, from a treatment, from a diagnostic standpoint, it's miraculous what we can do. Robots doing surgery, and you name it. Like, it's really fantastic genetic therapies, and it's wonderful. But unfortunately, largely, patients are left out of the conversation, and in particular, having that agency piece. So from our perspective, is creating a design that puts the person at the center and always keeps it at the center. And for me as a creator, and I think, Ashley and Paige as well, and I've worked with, actually, until a couple of days ago, I had never met Paige in human form. Until a couple of minutes ago, I had not met Ashley in human form. We'd only met each other as avatars, but I know these women are incredibly talented at taking that experience from the perspective of the person, not just the patient, which is my work specifically. These are great examples. If you have the opportunity to go onto Horizon Worlds, you'll see what both of these women are creating. HouseCall has a presence there as well. We've created the first public medical lectures in the Metaverse that are still in a lecture format, but that include the magic of immersive technology. We had a foot and ankle surgeon do a lecture from inside of the ankle. And imagine what that means, right? Like, you have someone who's an expert who himself goes into the space and says, oh my gosh, I'm scoping an ankle all the time, but I'm standing in an ankle. And then to be able to experience that with a physician in real time is my definition of empathy.
Fantastic. Yeah, I feel like if we all had physicians like this, I think half of our problems would get solved. Probably not all of them, but just the empathy radiating from you is just, it's infectious, and your patients are so lucky to have you. So, and definitely you all visit Horizon Worlds with these amazing women as well. And by the way, show of hands, how many people are seeing somebody today or at this conference for the first time in human form, right? Yeah, we got a few, right? And I don't mean like, I guess non-avatar form, because there's like the Zoom or Teams, right? Like, it is interesting to, I think in the past it used to be that, oh, wow, I've only met you on Zoom. You're like this tall, or like, whatever. And now you're like, wow, like you're so, different or the same as your avatar. It's like, it's just these really interesting interactions that we're now seeing. So I want to take a pause to see if actually we are able to get Dr. Julia Scott into the mix here. now? I can hear you very, very tiny. I don't know, folks, if we can bump up her sound a little bit. We're gonna see this. We're gonna try our best here. All right. Was that a test? Ah, there she is. All right, now you all know that it's not our imaginary friend here. We've been looking at her here, and I'm like, I wish I could almost like take a picture and show you all. So at least we have her on the screen. Now, can we do a sound check?
Do you guys hear me?
We can. I mean, I feel like, there we go. Okay, can we hear you now?
Am I present?
Yeah, I think if we all quiet down, I think we may be able to get you. So, if you would, do you mind doing just a really quick intro, and then I'd love to get your perspective on kind of how you apply empathic design practices in your work, because you have some really cool stuff you're working on.
All right. So I'm Dr. Julia Scott. I'm a researcher at Clara University out in California, and the focus of the work I do is on healthcare innovation using XR. And so who I'm designing for are, in one way or another, more vulnerable groups, whether it is when we're working on something related to mental health, or on the other side of it, we work in dementia care. So designing VR training experiences for people who will be caregivers. And in the design of that, we need to be considerate of how we're representing individuals with dementia in the VR application, because these are live filmed scenarios that are then constructed into an immersive training experience. So there's that aspect of it, and then also considering what the experience is like for the user, for the trainee, in that scenario where they need to directly build empathy in that process. And that's kind of the perspective I'm coming from, is how to design these experiences and evaluate these experiences to have the outcomes we're looking for, and to be considerate of that full user experience from end to end.
Super, and you all can see why we're trying to get her in here. She's got fascinating experience. And thank you to the tech team. Shout out. This is our first time beaming somebody in, so this is fantastic. Thank you. So just real quick, Julia, can you tell us how you actually kind of get that perspective of the user? Because how do you actually put yourself in the shoes of somebody who has dementia?
We talk to them. It's a lot of work before we even get to the tech. When we're developing the scenarios and the scripts, we do that in consultation with the caregivers, with experts in the field, and with those with dementia, just out of necessity on the earlier stages of the disease, and learn from those experiences. Before we started this whole thing, we surveyed and interviewed about 97 people throughout those stakeholders to find out what was important to them, what were their shared lived experiences, and how can we distill that into these training modules so that we can transfer the learning of person-centered care in an effective and scalable way. So it's a lot of upfront work before we even touch any of the tech.
Got it. Yeah, and it's that early stage, I guess, when the person still can kind of talk from both perspectives, right? Because they're in their early stages, they can kind of give you more of that feedback as well. Excellent. Okay, well, I know we only have a few minutes left, so what I want to do is kind of take a look into the future and see, what is one lesson that we can learn from the past. I'm going to ask each of our panelists, what's one lesson we can learn from the past that will shape how we can design for a better future? So I am going to, actually, let's start back with Julia. I guess she's not on the, okay. If you could kick us off, and then we're going to go all the way down here.
Okay, so flashing forward to the future of what a empathic metaverse would look like. So something built in a sense by humans for humans is kind of where I keep the focus. I'd love to see a concentration on using that platform to build more human connection, and particularly intergenerational relationships. So designing the platform so that their usage is more intuitive by those who are not as tech native, so that we really are bringing to the table our communities just on in a sense, a decentralized platform. So you would have, I'd love to see grandparents interacting with their grandkids across the country or across continents in an immersive way. So that's what I'd love to see.
Love it. Get that intergenerational connectivity going. Super. All right, rapid fire to the last three folks here. Paige, the OG, over to you.
I think that there's so many lessons to learn from the past, from if not us, then who, right? We all have the luxury of being this generation of creators, producers, innovation scripters, and leaders in this emerging field that has a generation or so before us as well. But in order to lay the foundations of a more equitable future, instead of thinking of us as pioneers and it's a Wild West, right? When you think back to pioneers in Wild West, actually, it was a bloody, brutal, bad history, right? Of appropriation and massacres and just horrible things, right? So instead, think of yourself as creating a better way, right? That we're not we're not taking from other people's, we're not erasing people's histories, we're not destroying the agency of an entire culture and creating an economic failure of a system. So I believe, and this is one lesson that I think that for the future is when one is creating systems and you're thinking about equity and making a better world and more inclusion, not to leave out financial systems that level, or if not, raise the playing field higher for communities who have been systematically neglected or shut out of past systems. So if you're building for a better world, you cannot neglect financial systems for community, diverse members, LGBT people. And maybe, as we were just talking over lunch, we won't need women's groups in the future because there'll be way larger amounts of equity, and we'll consider that a thing of the past.
Yeah. So just like what Paige is saying, for me, it's also about inclusion. So making sure that the people that are in the room are also reflective of the end user. And not just in the room, but also making those decisions, having that power and authority to be able to speak and then know that what they're saying is going to actually be implemented. I think is super, super important. So that is how I would say we can kind of correct the things that we've done in the past, because even just in recent history, we're in the room, but we're not able to make those calls that are going to make the end thing better. So just giving that both inclusion and then authority as well.
Wow, well, that's a tough act to follow, both of, all of these perspectives. And I mean, what an honor it is to sit on the stage here and have these conversations. thank you both for that, and Dr. Scott as well. I'll zoom out for more of a predicting what I'd like to see, and it has to do with my field, with my dream, my hopes. My hope is that a family that is dealing with a potentially catastrophic diagnosis is able to have that experience where it isn't as unempowering, where the idea of just the basic understanding of what's happening is not on their shoulder, that is taken care of, and that empathy is created within our system to make that a priority, so that as they're moving forward in whatever it is that their health journey has in front of them, is creating an experience where they can focus on what really matters, which is being present for themselves, for their loved ones, finding the right path forward, and doing that from a place of comfort and not a place of relative comfort and not a place of loss of agency. I see that as an ongoing project, not a single conversation that's had on a single day, but a systematic change that needs to happen within healthcare systems, but other systems as well, to your points. So what I can imagine the future of the metaverse to be is a place where people can fundamentally understand things in completely new ways, and to take that and to make a better world.
Wow, mic drop, right? That was beautiful. Thank you so much. And it has been an honor for me to be up here with you all as well. And Julia, thank you for kind of your patience and breaking through the realities in order to join us. And thank you for to the tech team as well. We are kind of at the end of our session, but definitely feel free to kind of come and connect with us, ask us questions. And I did want to save like maybe 15 seconds for Paige, because you have a really big launch happening within like 20 minutes right now. So just wanted to give you a quick, shout out and space to make a plug for yourself.
Oh, thank you. Well, that Dynamite Labs is, like I said, going to blow up the old establishment and make, really things pop in new ways in the future. So you'll check YouTube for a soft video about museums in the metaverse, and you'll hear more coming in the next few days and weeks.
Boom. All right. Well, we'll leave on a mysterious note there. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you to everyone. And we are happy to chat more. All right. We will.